Thanks for watching Inside the Studio with Greg Wurth. And in this episode, I'm showing you the infamous Arousor plugin from Empirical Labs. They've been bringing a lot of hype to this, and known everybody's known it as the Distressor plugin, but they've recently revealed that it's actually going to be called Arousor. From a first look, I mean, it's obviously based off of the Distressor, but after using it for a while, you quickly realize that it goes beyond what the Distressor actually can do, and this is definitely the next step. You know, the Distressor has a huge legacy. They've been around for over 20 years. You know, people have been using these on countless records, and it's one of the most sought after pieces of gear out there. And to offer this as a plugin like this, I think it was very intelligent that they took it to the next level, because they added features that, you know, are a little more modern, and I think it's great. You know, there's a lot of people out there complaining about the price and, you know, concerned if it's going to be a direct comparison with a Distressor, but honestly, who cares? It's an amazing plugin. It's worth the price. Does it sound exactly like a Distressor? That's up to you to decide. But I think going into this, you really should just try and appreciate it for what it is, because it can definitely do the Distressor sound, but it takes it to another level. So let me just go over here. You know, it's got the typical input and output knobs that you'd be familiar with, and your gain reduction metering. And it's got attack and release, just as you'd expect, and all your ratios here. And which is cool is you got 1:1 and 1.5:1, so you can do a lot of, you know, more subtle things with it. And it goes all the way up to 20:1, and then rivet, which, you know, everybody's going to say it's just the same thing as nuke. And then one feature that's really cool that I think a lot of people are having a hard time understanding, I think mostly because it's hard to actually describe in words what it does. It's better to just really just listen and hear it. Attack modification, which basically it adjusts the shape of what this attack is set to, so you can really get in there and fine tune it. And what I found is on very transient things like a kick, snare, bringing this attack more to the right, it just adds this crack. You know, you get a little more attack to it and punch, which is really cool. So I'm finding myself that I'm dragging this all the way to the right for a lot of things, especially more transient things. So I'll definitely go over what this sounds like on various things. And over here is a soft clipping section, and it's got some metering here, so you can add more or less. It's pretty straightforward there. A detector high pass filter, which is very cool. You can go all the way up to 1K. So this is great for, you know, letting all your low end pass through without triggering the compressor to over compress. This detector sidechain EQ is pretty phenomenal. Essentially, it lets you bring in a little more focus as to what the compressor is looking at. So if you want, you know, for example, if you got a lot of cymbal information at 10K or something like that, and you want to bring that down without having to lower your threshold, because you're liking how it's gluing the track or whatever it is, you can go ahead and bring this to the right a little bit, and it'll bring out information at 10K, and you got a bandwidth here so you can adjust that. And on the other end of it, you can bring things out. So if you want to accentuate frequencies on the vocal or a guitar or some low end, you bring this over to the left here, and it'll accentuate that. So it'll tell the compressor to, you know, not focus on those frequencies so that they can pass through more. So it's weird because it'll save you from having to use EQ in certain areas. And hopefully my demo can give a good example of that. And then over here, the wet dry knob, which is a super valuable tool. So let's start. I made some quick presets that I was really happy with. So I'll start and I'll show those, and then I'll go ahead and just, you know, tweak drastic settings so you can kind of hear what each of these things are doing. So I got the Arousor plugin on the drum bus. So let me bypass it and hear how this passage sounds without it. Okay, now let's hear it with it. So as you can see, I'm getting like at least 10 dB of compression there. My immediate thought of what I hear is it makes it sound more exciting. You know, it sounds a little more less interesting with it without it. And this, you know, gives this excitement and a little bit of movement and depth there. And so here, what I'll go ahead and do is let me adjust the attack modification with the same settings here, and you can see if you can hear a difference here. So I'll start with it off, and then I'll slowly drag it to the right, and I'll drag it back. And just pay attention to the transients, like the kick and the snare. So definitely there's a sweet spot there. It seems like around 5 is where, you know, the attack feels like it pokes through nicely and it's not too much. So let's go back and put that back where it was here. So I don't know if you hear it, it's almost like it brings the kick and snare out. It just sits nicely. And that's amazing. Okay, so let's move on to the soft clipping. So as you can see, there's definitely a sweet spot that this has, and obviously it's dependent to how hard you're hitting the input section of it. But this is really cool. I mean, for a drum bus, you know, it's great. You get a little nice grit and harmonics there. All right, so let's move over to the detector, the high pass filter. So I'll turn this off, and then I'll slide it over, and you can hear the low end pass through. So you definitely hear the low end open up. So let me just show you that again. Let me turn this off, and then I'll quickly switch it to 170. So what I hear is, you know, with the high pass filter off, it stifles that low end. It's making the compressor overwork, and it's just really not giving a pleasant musical sound. And so back in this, you know, off where you're telling it to ignore 170 hertz and below, it's just really preserving that killer low end. Now let's move on to the detector sidechain EQ. It's a really cool feature here. I really like this, and like I said, you can focus. Like let's put it over in the low end, and let's see what that does. Let me go back to the verse. So all the way over here, you can see how it's just squashing out that low end. It's really stifling it, okay? And so when I drag it over here to the left, you'll hear that that low end just comes through and it sounds nice and fat. So take another listen. So there you go. I mean, that's amazing. And I have this at backed off a little bit, the compression, and I think it sounds really nice. Let's try and really squash the crap out of this drum bus. I'll back off the wet dry, and you'll hear how that sounds. So as you can see, this thing is really versatile, and you can really squash the crap out of stuff and still make it very musical and usable. Let's listen to the kick. And this one's really cool. This actually amazed me, especially with this attack mod. So let me show you this section with it bypassed. It just makes it sound monstrous. It's like it just gives it this character. It's pretty amazing. Let me slide this attack mod off so you can kind of really hear what this thing is doing on the kick. It's just I can't even explain it. It's like it gives it this thud. To me, this makes this better than a distressor. And I can have as many as my computer can handle. And, you know, as we all know, it's like it's hard to have 2, 3, 4, 5 distressors, you know, hardware. So anyways, I think that's a really cool parameter for transient information. Let's move on to the snare here. So you can see it's like with the attack mod off, it's almost unusable. This just adds this extra crack, which is amazing. Okay, so let's move on to the bass. Okay, so I'm hitting this pretty lightly because I don't need to shave off too many dynamics here. So what I would use this compressor for on this bass track would be more to just give a little character. And actually with this attack modification, it actually makes it sound a little more punchier. Let me put this attack mod off here, and then I'll dial it in and show you how that sounds. So it's hard to explain. It just sits nicely. It just that sounds like it's right in front of my face. Let me show you what the saturation is doing on the track. I'll take it off here. So you can hear immediately, it just gives it this nice growl. Also here, let me take off the detector circuit here on the low end so you can hear what that's doing. So, that's pretty self-explanatory. When you're using low end instruments, you basically always want to let the low end pass through here like that. And what I've done here is I'm manipulating this sidechain EQ to let the low end sound a little fatter as well. So let me zero this out and show you how that sounds. So there you have it. I mean, I don't know what else to say. This thing is amazing. So let me show you. Let's move on to the lead guitar, the solo section, and I'll show you what this sounds like without the Arousor plugin and then with it. So as you can hear, it's adding a lot of grit there. It might be a little too much. Let me try that again, and I'll back off this saturation a bit. So that's pretty cool. Let's see what this attack is sounding like on there. It's hard to explain. It makes these things poke out of the speaker. And it just, again, it sounds really great. Let me show you what's going on with this parametric sidechain EQ on the guitar. Let's zero this out here. So as you can see, I got this centered around 2.58 kilohertz. So I'm putting this compressor to focus on these frequencies right now. And when I'm doing the cut, I'm taking those out. It's compressing that heavily. And this is kind of a nice frequency for this guitar. So what I want to do actually is I want to boost it a little bit and let that stand out a little more. So take a listen. And you can hear immediately it just emphasizes those frequencies. So let's move over to a verse for the vocals. And if you remember, this vocal has a lot of distortion. So let's see what this can do to it.
Lord, what have I done? Lord, what have I done? Should I stay or should I run? No, I ain't got nothing left to say.
So it adds more character. Let me show you. This is actually one thing that I felt that having less of this attack modification actually sounded better than if it was all the way to the right. So let me turn it off and then I'll drag it over and you can hear what this sounds like on a vocal.
So I make my move late at night. I look around and something ain't right, yeah. What's this blood on my hands? So I make my move late at night. I look around and something ain't right, yeah.
It doesn't sound good to me. It sounds a little too smooth if it's to the right, if that makes sense to you. All right, let me show you. I'm doing the same thing that I did on the guitar with this sidechain EQ, and I'm actually I'm bringing out a little bit of 3.5K here. So let me zero this, and then I'll show you what it sounds like.
So I make my move late at night. I look around and something ain't right, yeah.
Okay, so let me go ahead and I'll show this in context of the whole track.
Lord, what have I done? Should I stay or should I run? No, I ain't got nothing left to say. I think I better go away.
So I think it's cool. This compressor just allows these tracks to set really well in the mix. Let me give, for example, let's show this thing on the stereo bus, and let me pop over to the solo section here, and I'll play it without and then with. So what I have going here is 1.5 to 1 ratio, so very low, and it's hitting like 1 to 2 dB of gain reduction. I have no saturation, and I have the attack mod all the way to the right. This is where I was torn because I have, I've only had it for a short amount of time, so I haven't been able to get really used to using this for everything. And I think obviously the stereo bus, you got to be a lot more subtle. Let me just tweak this and show you what it sounds like when you adjust this for the stereo bus. So actually, I mean, that sounds great. When you drag this all the way to the left, your attack goes away quite a bit. I have a pretty slow attack here, so I'm trying to let all the transients pass through, and this can fine tune that, and this actually brings out a little more punch to the tracks. Again, here I have the high pass filter in on the detector, and I'll show you what it sounds like without that. So yeah, I mean, you hear the compressor pumping, and it doesn't sound musical. It's not how you would really want to use it on a stereo bus. So bringing it over here lets that pass through. And this is an interesting one because I was kind of torn. This actually made me feel like I would love to have two different bands to mess with on this parametric sidechain EQ, because I was emphasizing some frequencies where, the guitar and stuff sat, and it let it poke out a little bit. But then I brought it over here and I realized I can accentuate the low end even more. And it made me think, it'd be awesome to have more options here. But, when you have something great, you're always going to want more. I think that's kind of the typical thing there. So let me show you what this sounds like. Let me drag this back to 0. So it almost makes that guitar solo just poke out of the speaker, and it gives this nice glue to the track, and it's not too drastic. It's very subtle. But all right, so let's bring this back to 0, and I'll put this back at the low end and show you how that sounds. What I was thinking there, it was around 70 hertz, I guess. Well, there you have it. I don't know what else to say. They released the demo so you can try this out for 14 days for free, and you can see what you think about it. Like I said before, a lot of people are skeptical because they're expecting a distressor copy, and I think that's kind of missing the point. If that's what you're expecting, then you're setting yourself up for disappointment, because really this takes what the distressor was and it brings it to a whole other level. This allows you to use this on applications that I wouldn't necessarily think to go to a distressor for. So I think that's pretty amazing, and I got to give a shout out to Dave Derr and Gil Griffith. Those guys have been holding down this Empirical Labs brand for so long, and everything they come out with is great. And, unfortunately, it took a lot longer to release this product than they wished, but that just goes to show how much they care about quality, and they want to make sure something is right before it's in your hands. So hopefully everyone can appreciate that and check it out. Make sure you're subscribed to the YouTube channel, subscribe to my newsletter, and I'll check you out next time.